The story begins with a girl encountering an evil woman alone in a back alley where she finds herself alone. As her heart races with fear, she contemplates every possible action to ensure her safety. The evil woman walks towards her, grabs the amulet pouch around the girl's neck, and forcefully tears it away. The young girl, filled with helplessness and in real pain, recalls all the things and moments she had lived so far. She reflects on the joyful times spent with her parents when they were still by her side. However, everything took a turn for the worse 3 years ago. On a fateful day, her town was attacked by a lot of monsters, resulting in drastic changes. To protect her, both her parents sacrificed themselves and lost their lives, and unwillingly she was put in an orphanage, where she quickly learned the harsh realities of the world. Once, there was a boy who was so hungry that his stomach growled incessantly, urging him to find something to eat. Desperate and famished, he resorted to nibbling on a potato in the pantry. Unfortunately, this expired meal left him feeling even colder the following day. And how the older children used to impose their work on the younger ones and take their food, while the adults in the town turned a blind eye to their plight. Experiencing all these things made her realize that she didn't want to be there and that she might get killed, but she understood that nobody is inherently evil. She aspired to become someone who could smile and forgive others, as this was what her parents wished. But as 3 years passed by, and realization hit her like a ton of bricks, as she reached the limit, the orphanage owner was profiting from the sale of orphans. She had always felt the weight of her sickening gaze appraising their worth. Gathering all her courage, she fled the orphanage one dark day, clutching the amulet pouch, her soul remaining linked to her family. Then, we are back in the present as the girl lies there cluelessly. That evil woman opens that amulet pouch, says that it was so painful to search for that girl and she only knew her name, age and hair color, and eye color, and says that she has become thin. The girl's inadequate eating habits would surely come as a surprise to her grandfather when he arrives. To add to her confusion, the woman suddenly exclaimed, "My grandfather." It was then revealed that the woman had shared her predicament, explaining that she couldn't intervene due to the story's timeline. Despite her efforts to become a teacher, she faced repeated setbacks. This realization caused her to take charge and become the protagonist, setting off on a journey to achieve her goal. Then she goes on talking about this mysterious magic stone. After a living creature absorbs magic particles past a certain amount, the stone is called magic stone, which is born in their heart from the blood in their body. The magic stone is a rare and powerful artifact that not only contains high-purity magic power, but also retains some of the original creature's unique characteristics. The protagonist, deeply intrigued by this method, discovers that she can use the stone to transfer her memories and personality to another girl. She spends countless hours over 5 years working on her magic stone, repeatedly extracting her blood and infusing it with her magic power until she finally completes it. With the stone, she hopes to implant it into the girl's heart, transforming herself into the heroine she has always dreamed of being. However, the situation takes a dark turn when the protagonist finds herself in danger and desperate to save herself from a woman intent on harming her. In a heart-pounding moment, the girl throws the magic stone away and fights back, using a nearby stone as a weapon to strike that woman. The protagonist's survival instinct kicks in as she struggles to defend herself, leaving her to realize that her magical stone is not the only thing she needs to be a true hero. As the woman struggles to find the knife and tries to get hold of that girl, the girl stands on her knees and stabs that woman with a knife in the center of her heart. The girl starts thinking, why would she do it? How could she stab a woman? Then it was revealed that it was that woman's fragmentary memories knowledge. Yet she understood one thing: she had been spilling her blood and sweat for decades for the sake of this so-called game, autumn game. The world of sword and magic seal. This world's common sense, combat technique, geography and history, and magic and sorcery. There was a lot to comprehend yet, but she was able to obtain the minimum amount of knowledge required to survive in this cruel world. As the protagonist returns to the orphanage, she is met with a distressing sight. The director is shouting at the other orphans for letting a girl escape. Later that night, the protagonist takes advantage of the director's deep slumber and confronts her, ultimately stabbing her. Despite her actions, the protagonist hopes that the kind-hearted old priest will take over and bring some much-needed relief to the orphanage. However, the manipulative words of that old director still bother her, making her question the purpose of the autumn game and the sacrifices her parents made. The protagonist rejects the game and resolves to chart her path, determined to survive independently and find her true purpose in life. As she looks around, she can't help but feel like she's living inside the world of the autumn game, falling in love on the Silver Wings, also known as Silver Love. This game follows the story of a kind-hearted and hardworking heroine who has been living in a church ever since her parents were killed by dangerous monsters one such night. Her life changes dramatically when she is discovered by nobles and sent to a prestigious school where the children of the nobles attend. There, she forms close friendships with the prince and his companions, but also faces bullying from his fiancé. However, after gaining divine protection in a dungeon, she goes on a life-changing adventure that ultimately leads to a happy ending. But later, the protagonist discovers that the entire narrative is just a story, and she is not just a character in the game but a real person. She realizes that to avoid getting caught up in the auto game's story, she should have verified its content to some extent. However, at the time, she was too focused on rejecting that evil woman and may have been unconsciously repelled by her. Her knowledge of the true nature of the woman was extremely vague. Walking all alone, with the hope of reaching the neighboring town by midnight, it just seemed impossible at her pace, as no matter how much knowledge she gains, she's a 7-year-old child. So she took a small break and found some shelter under a braid. Then she opened the bag she stole from that evil lady and looked for the things inside it, and she found white bread. She recalled how her dad used to apologize to her mom for not being able to eat white bread every day, and how back then she used to look forward to eating white bread. She then has some water, first aid her left, collect some possessions for a safe journey. She ends up gathering food that would last her 3 days if she eats it little by little, and founds a book with looks expensive but not that rare. It belonged to that evil woman, which again was stolen by her master. Going through the book, she finds, according to the knowledge, parchment is an ancient papermaking method, and that this book was made up from it as well. She had a basic understanding of the characters, but to read and write the text, she needed to learn, and that's how she learned about medical herbs, and thought it better if no one knew that she was a female, so impulsively she cut her hair short, thinking about the thing she was afraid of. But now at this moment she gets the reason as well. That was because she didn't know to survive, but now she knows. The next day at noon, she discovers a campsite, where she used some dust left from the bonfire to make a change in her hair texture to make her hair color stand out a little. Looking around, she saw a hole from where the water was flowing and decided to clean herself up using it, and recalls at the orphanage the older orphan used daily life magic to make fire. There are 6 types of daily life magic: dark, light, water, hard, wind, and fire. With the basic knowledge she gathers, she can learn sorcery eventually, but for now, she needs daily life magic. Looking back, the protagonist realizes that she should have been more cautious and attentive to avoid the pitfalls of the game's narrative. Nonetheless, her story remains a reminder that sometimes things are not what they seem like, and it's essential to be smart enough to navigate through life's twists and turns. So she decides first she needs to go to the big town, and there should be a lot of places for her to hide there. But the problem is that on entering the big town, she has to pay a tax of 1 silver coin. She recalls that a woman was an adventurer, and adventurers are mercenaries who specialize in the investigation of unexplored areas while eliminating monsters and other threats. Apparently, if you're a member of an adventurer guild, you can enter and leave the town freely according to the rank. That woman had a strong impact on the protagonist. As noon passes by, she sees someone at the campsite. Looking at that man, she thinks to get away, but she notices a man nearby and quickly tries to escape. She runs as fast as she can until she can no longer hear the sound of the man's footsteps. Suddenly, a hatchet is thrown in her direction. With no other option, she defends herself but is sent flying. When the man approaches her, he realizes his mistake. She's just a child, not a kobold. He apologizes, mistaking her for a boy, and invites her to join him for some roasted sliced snake. He also offers to heal her with light sorcery. As it turns out, the man is an adventurer, and he replaces her broken knife. He reveals that he's only 20 years old. She then expressed her desire to learn magic from him, and they engaged in a conversation about daily magic powers and their flow. He showed her how to strengthen her body, acknowledging that she had potential but a long way to go. The man decided to teach her the fundamentals of magic through proper drilling. The next morning, Feld begins teaching the protagonist about status, detailing how it reflects an individual's abilities that can be assessed by various senses, including sight, hearing, and magic power. They then move on to hunting, prey processing, and dagger arts, which prove challenging for both the 7-year-old protagonist and Feld. Despite recognizing the need for adult protection, Feld, an adventurer, struggles to assume that responsibility and advises the child to fend for herself. As they part ways at sunset, the protagonist reflects on their heartfelt father figure. The narrative transitions back to the small village where talk of the orphanage is circulating, culminating in the discovery of a magical stone belonging to an evil woman. This signals her return, showing her comeback into the body of some orphan girl, and sets the scene for the next chapter. From Feld's training, the protagonist was able to learn to use water and fire magic power. The next thing to learn was hard. It was magic power that hardened the earth, typically used to shorten the construction process. By mixing water and mud, she was able to make harden. With this knowledge, she made this earth called clay, and made of much finer particles than regular earth. But from this little less knowledge, she wasn't able to master making hard perfectly. As she took a break pondering, a thought came across her mind. What if she used earth instead of ashes? With all her concentration, she tried and was surprised it worked. That earth was made up of finer particles than the regular earth. So instead of using magic power to connect particles, she tried to imagine magic power permeating the gauze between them. As she practiced, she noticed sensing the magic power of the wind all the time actually gave her control over the wind faster than expected. With these magic powers, she learned how to make cooked food. Sensing the campfire scents, she proceeded to cook food using the magic that she learned, but the food was awful. To survive, she decided to learn knife throwing. While practicing, she understood there should be a change in plan as her current muscle strength just wasn't good enough, so she processed to learn stone throwing. As time passes by, she picks some berries on her way, pondering about magic, spirits, and earth elements. As she closely stares into the strange night, she sees that the forest, which was just darkness, suddenly becomes colorful. And that's how she learned stealth. Then she proceeds to practice with her newly made sling. As she learned, she noticed that she was finally able to make it fly straight, and pouring magic into it increases the accuracy. The next morning, she sets foot to head towards the neighboring town. While traveling, she uses up body strength and saves up the remaining daily life magic spells, light and dark. But now that she learned to use the light, she tries to make it work but fails as she wasn't able to use it properly. Without any practice, she made it by using dark in the dense forest. After traveling for that long distance, the protagonist reached the town and found the main gate closed. It was difficult to get inside, as in this country your movement is restricted based on your social status, like commenters, who pay taxes to their feudal lord as citizens, nobles those of the ruling class, free folk, those without home, and slaves, those who solve themselves to be serfs, and all have their own restricted to where they can go around with paying silver coins. The protagonist is a freed person. She got to route to enter the town, but through that evil woman's knowledge she was able to find a way to enter the town through the slums. As she made her way through the empty slums, she came across a well and proceeds to draw some water through it. But then she caught glimpses of two kids and was asked to pay the silver coins to use it. The protagonist then gives them one single coin and proceeds to part ways, but the kids ask for more coin and she tries to scare them off and ask for direction to the shop that sells things to any street urchin. And then she was caught by an older man who was cruel, but deep down she knew she won't stay still and let herself get killed, so she ends up attacking that man and leaves the corpse to deal with the slumbered sibling. Later on, she visited the shop and asked for a sharp small blade used for throwing and won appraisal crystals, but the owner was selling those overpriced as compared to the market price. But this shop also provided half-used crystals as well and got a bag for herself and few iron skewers. Collecting the things, she steps out of the shop and finds that two slump siblings following her. They then introduce themselves as Gil and Shuri. The protagonist greets them by telling them her name is Arya. Then she vanished from their sight and walked towards the forest. Suddenly the location sets back to Claydale Kingdom's former royal house, where the young lady, Clara, awakes and realizes that this is the world of silver love, and she recalls all the memories of her past life. So before the story of the autumn games, Clara, the villainess, has to kill off the heroine. The short story is back on a sunny morning when the protagonist's mom cooks the meal and greets her with a good morning, Alicia, and went to greet her dad with a good morning hug. And like a happy family, they had their morning breakfast. 2 weeks after then, she started her survival. She started living in the forest and continued her training, working mostly on her body strength while practicing magic. There were many magic users, and she focused on becoming a mage first. The mage is those who use their mana to interfere with the ambient elemental mana to use attribute magic. The evil woman for the autumn game only knew light magic, but she starts with the chant heal and uses Rediwhirl Strazaker. It's a level 1 light magic to recover stamina and heals minor wounds. But it didn't work. Then she realized that the chant is modified version of the spirit language that the ancient elves made so that humans can use magic. Perhaps the original chants were longer and more current. To heal, she has to train her body and find the correct chant. On day 1, she sees no results. On day 2, she tries changing the words of the chant, but still no results. Day 3 also shows no progress. On day 4, she decides to focus on improving her physical abilities. Day 5 brings slight progress in body reinforcement and household magic. Day 6 shows no results, but on day 7, the chant starts to return some vitality. 2 days later, her crystal abilities increase as she gains the ability to use healing magic. Then she returns to the slums and visits the store to get some preserved food supply and exchanges makujitsu, a fruit that isn't suitable to eat but possesses some magical elements. She sells them off and gets 3 silver coins in return. And she walks out of the shop. She caught glimpses of those 2 slum siblings who told her about some creepy guy wandering in that area. She couldn't care less until she sensed his stealth and was attacked by a flying blade. That man tries to catch Arya, and in this situation, the only option she feels right is to fight. She tries to attack him, but he dodges it, and in a fraction of a minute he gets a hold of her and catches her. This makes her angry, and she gets in her form as it looks like a real fight. As they took positions, that bandit laughs and says that he was only looking for a kid that can work. After hearing his words, she clams down and heals herself. Then the bandit introduces himself that he's a scout from the Adventurers Guild. He's 35 and a rank 4 adventurer, and his name is Willow. Scouts usually do covert operations and detective work, so their likelihood depends on gathering intel. He tells her about the work, which was a personal request as he was looking for a person to be hired for security, and goes on by mentioning that he'll be paying her as well till she can get paid by herself. Of course, this offer can't be refused, so she agrees on it, and promised herself that she'll make sure that she will take every bit of strength she can that he can provide. Then the scene sets to the town square, where they first head to the Adventurer Guild to get her registered. But taking a detour, they visit a cloth store where they buy a shawl and some shorts and reach the Adventurers Guild, where a woman helps people for getting registered, to get registered for rank 1. The protagonist had to show her any skill, but she keeps her wish that she want to learn the combat skills and is willing to pay from her pocket. As the things were decided, they process on by filling the form, and as they proceed to the training ground area, the learners to use a skill under just 1 hour. That active skill was called Thrust, which was shooting non-attribute magic in the shape of a blade, and was announced as a rank 1 adventurer. After meeting Feld and Willow, Arya understood something, that to live with strength is very important, but getting that strong can lead her to be noticed by the nobles. Then based on that, her life path is defined. As they proceed further, they stop by a blacksmith resident, as Willow had some business with him. Galbus, the blacksmith, invites them in. Willow shows him a magic stone of fire-breathing lizard as he was asked for, and gives him his sword for some shaping. As the blacksmith goes on by asking Willow about the protagonist, he says that he is like a younger brother to him and asks for any kind of knife for the protagonist. The blacksmith comes out with a monosteel knife, which is made up of iron ingot and is sold for 20 golds, but the old man was kind enough to sell it for 1 gold. After taking the knife, they move towards the Taurus territory, going through some small villages. 3 days later, as for training, they hunt bandits and practice killing goblins' prowess. As the sun sets down, through their night vision skill, they try focusing on mana strengthening to sense things. And traveling ahead, they reach an abandoned village bandit camp. They saw 9 bandits and 5 lookouts. They first agree to take care of the lookouts. Willow attacks one lookout, and after a while, Arya was approached by another and she attacks him too. As she waits for Willow to get back, she saw a shade of someone in the dark. It was none other than Willow himself. The next morning, it was revealed that it had been 2 days and they reached a town. As soon as they reached the town, Arya was down as a fever and slept all day. As they have breakfast, the next thing to learn was the dark magic, noise, and learning some useful skills like using assassination tools, besides apparicles, which she learned recently. Then they head to Margrave Dandel, as it's been noticed that it was certainly a holiday home that nobles like to hide away. As they travel, they reach their destination 1 week later. Then the story shifts to Claydale Kingdom capital, which was originally 3 separate countries. Dandel to the north and Melrose to the south. It was left with 2 ruling parties alive, and after 100 years after unification, the 2 parties held high positions in the court. It was later revealed that about 10 years ago, the Prime Minister's daughter ran away with an apprentice knight, and they had a daughter named Alicia, the protagonist. In the present, Willow and Arya reach the resort in Dondal Margrave territory, and they meet up with Castro. He instructs Willow to directly go to Sirasama. Afterwards, Arya follows Castro and parts ways with Willow. Castro then tells her that her job is to keep a lookout around the territory not belonging to any of the nobility for a month. As she checked out the base, it wasn't as clean as it looked and was dusty. She then takes a walk in that forest where they start looking for supplies, fence a few things, and have berries to eat. The day passed, but there was no sign of either Castro or patrolling soldiers. Before it gets dark, she lights up the campfire and has a meal. As she sits in the dark, she senses something moving close. Examining, she sees rank 2 hobgoblin wandering in a place like this, and then she sees a light flickering towards her from the shed. It is a maid. Alone, there was no other option to save her, so Arya decides to attack the hobgoblin with a knife blade straight from above. The next morning, at the Dandal guest house, the maid Mina goes missing. Sirasama was told that she was getting food for the protagonist, but she was unaware. Then she reveals that several days ago, there was a global subjugation carried out by the neighboring territory and a few of them escaped back to the wild. She sends a call for Castro. Then the story sets back to the attack, where Arya takes down the hobgoblin, but the mini-goblins are in her way, so she attacks them as well. The hobgoblin is severely injured and loses his one eye, and his stamina goes down, which spares her some time to finish the other goblins. After killing off other goblins, as the hobgoblins attack her constantly, she dodges his attack and ends up defeating him. As Castro and Sirasama head towards the base, on their way there, they find the missing maid. On asking what happened, she tells them that she kept hearing the roars of so many monsters that she ran away and got lost. Sirasama then instructs both of them to head, and she alone goes ahead in search of the child. As she reaches the location, she finds a lot of blood and goblin corpses everywhere. On searching ahead, she finds Arya standing there unharmed. As she walks near Arya, she feels down and they head back to the resort and admit her. On gaining consciousness, Arya noticed that her MP and prowess had gone up and her mana just flowed better within her. Afterward, Willow comes to greet her with a meal basket. As they have a conversation, Sira-sama, the beautiful maid, enters the room and brings milk porridge for Arya. She returns the weapons she recovered from last night and asks Arya if she is willing to work under her and train to become a combat maid. Then the scene changes to the court of Claydale Kingdom's first princess, ISEKAI'd, one of the villainesses of the story. But the real villainesses are Clara and the other daughter of the court magician of the Lester house. But as of now, the game hasn't started yet. They both reach the resort and greet the working staff there, and Alina catches her eyes on one of the maids, with beautiful pink blonde hair, and greets her with a smile. The scout, Willow, a rank 4 adventurer, was asked by an acquaintance, Sira, to bring some useful kids to her. But as he came looking for kids in the slum, all he could find was just some normal kids, and just in time, he found a clever kid that wasn't scared to fight and could use magic too, Arya. And they have been traveling since. During the crash course, it was a battle out of nowhere, and he instructed Arya to fight the goblins on his own. Traveling in the pitch-black nights and finding and disarming traps together, they trained on camping too. In daily life, they would eat meat and also take care of themselves. In reality, when they stayed at the inn, Willow would introduce himself as Arya's dad and would maintain a good relationship. As a master, he was very determined to teach Arya how to become stronger, as he knew that she wasn't the type of kid who could live depending on someone else for protection. The story sets back to the actual setting. Sira-sama asks Arya about her name and age and is shocked and motivates her, and eventually, Arya agrees to do the combat maid training. Sira Layton, the charge of the maids in their manor and castle, introduces herself, and from that day, Arya starts working as an apprentice maid in the manor. With all the instructions given, she is introduced to Mina, and Mina helps Arya get clean up, and helps her get dress up in a maid dress and helps her with basic lessons. And the day ends there. The next morning, Arya hides her weapons in the forest and is seen by the kid's brother. The butler, being a kid, tries annoying Arya by flipping her skirt, and Arya attacks him with the knife but doesn't harm him. The Sean-sama enters and apologizes to Arya as his mother and introduces his son as Seo Ryito, the apprentice butler. Then she states that in the morning Arya will be given combat training with Seo, and etiquette training will be done after her maid duties are done for the day. And they talk about magic and elements. Later on, learn combat skills where Seo kept defeating Arya, but she needed some improvement as well. They learned about poisons and the magic attribute, clean. As they finish their breakfast, Seo tells her a few good words and heads for this work. Arya gets done with her maid duties. She had other businesses too, like working on her darkness magic. She figured through experimentation, magic is harder to control and learn but has a lower mana cost, and it evolves around attribute magic. As time flew by, that day arrived when Alina asked Arya to be her highness attendant. With time, Arya started serving Alina-sama, and Clara-sama maintained her distance from Arya. The next day, Alina-sama went for shopping, and Arya accompanied her. As they arrived at the store, something looked off. There were only 3 maids and a butler, and our customers were missing. As Alina went on to try some of the clothes, Arya suddenly wasn't able to sense her presence and walks inside the changing room to find Alina-sama missing and one of the helping maid laying unconscious. There was a hole in the floor. Arya went underground to find another maid alone, attacked by the people asking her for information for the money. As Arya continues her search for Alina-sama, she navigates through some complex tunnels, reaching an end point. She finds a man and attacks him in her desperation. Helpless to escape, that man tells her that he was just a lookout and that the lady had departed to the left and there's a carriage waiting for her as she moves forward. She recalls the wisdom of Sean-sama that there is a political faction in this kingdom who are against the exiting of monarchy, and the assailant mostly aims at taking the hostage alive, so saving the noble people should be her priority. And Arya recalls all the moments she had with Alina-sama and how she wanted to save her. From a very young age, Alina-sama was treated very harshly in an attempt to make her become the next queen regent by her mother, and that's how she next got her mom's love. At such a young age, that was all she desired, and accepted her harsh education in the hopes of one such day she might be loved. In the age of only 4, she developed 4 elemental affinities and gained knowledge. In exchange, she lost her childhood and bodily constitution, and so her mother lost all her interest in her. But after not a very long time, her brother, Erwin, the child of the first queen, was the one she was left with. The harsh truth was, even after following her mother's whims, her country would have been divided into a royal faction and a noble faction, starting a civil war. Even if the prince was determined to be too weak until a second prince or the first prince's child could reach maturity, she had to take over the reins of the kingdom and educate the next monarch. That's why she continued her queenly education in secret, even if she had to betray her mother, and that was her only goal. But here, she was kidnapped, but the thief, even after having not enough consciousness, even after being in the royal faction, she was a hope of the noble faction as well. It could have been the case that someone has had a request placed with the Thieves' Guild for her abduction. As the thief poisons the Highness, Arya arrives to rescue them. The reason for Alina-sama's outing was that her father thought she should have some rest from her busy schedule, and the destination was picked because of her cousin, Clara. But Clara was different. The gaze she had was different, and so the maid she crossed was for a reason. Here in the present scene, Arya is ready to fight the thief. As she examines the surroundings, she can sense the enemy's prowess and starts attacking Arya with her knife throwing, so that she can spare enough time to she can use her chance while fighting. As they involve in extreme fights, a lot of chance and magic powers were used. Attacked were so powerful that Arya was sent flying a multiple times. But she uses her new weapon attacks and it surprisingly works. It didn't do any much damage, but they moved fast using its core, and the string was soaked in her blood using the main flows through it. As the enemy was let shocked, they get into serious combat with knives to make most of it. Arya tries using her feet through her skirts like Sean-sama taught to hide leg movements from the enemy. As the enemy becomes aware of Arya's technique, she builds a strong earth main core around her which protects her from any further attacks, and her new weapon gets to be used less. In a fraction of a minute, Arya gets stabbed in the stomach, which causes a lot of pain. As she lays there with this much pain, she chants a spell, pain. The enemy starts feeling the same amount of pain, which makes the target hallucinate the same amount of pain. As the enemy suffers from the pain she can't understand, Arya then uses her new weapon and eliminates the enemy. Arya ends up losing a lot of blood, as if her internal organs were damaged. The Highness tries to cast a spell to heal her wound, but both are helpless. The magic spell cure is no good, but the princess knows another spell. Feel it shows the sensation felt by the user, and the wounded parts were liver and stomach. The next day, Arya wakes up after being unconscious for 3 long days. All the injuries were healed without any traces. That woman was a famous thief as the kidnapper. The moment Highness was kidnapped, the territory was encircled by the knights, and there was no risk of Highness being whisked away. As days passed by, Arya never heard from the princess and went on doing her duties. On the last day of Alina's vacation, she receives a note from her. As the moon is up, Arya goes to visit Alina-sama, and they both meet after a long time. Alina thanks Arya for rescuing her, and they talk about responsibilities and their duties and end up taking an oath. As the princess, no matter what situation Arya finds herself in, the shell uses up all her power and just wants to be her truest ally. Arya did the same thing for Alina. No matter the opponent, even if it were to be a king, just once she killed whoever she had been asked to. And both say their goodbyes and part ways. That was the end of the contract, but her next assignment was already decided. Brave, high-ranked butlers assign work to Arya in a different village, where her task is to infiltrate a noble household as a maid and resolve the issue that seems to have cropped up there. Her deadline was a month, and she agreed to the task. She greeted Willow and talked about their separate duties and parted ways. As Arya headed towards the village, the scene changes to the Prime Minister's place, where they are still looking for her daughter's child, but with such fewer clues, they continue their search from the orphanage. In the present, Arya reached her destination, Salais Barony. As she stepped towards the town, she got to know that there is a monster that started to appear half a year ago in their territory, and rumors are that it is a human. No lookout ever saw it, and each day that monster goes to one young lady's room and leaves a bloody handprints on the walls. Hearing from the villagers, the information looks too inconsistent. The next day, she visits the noble's mansion, and he introduces Arya to her daughter, Maria. She has a little encounter with Maria's brother, who rather seemed a little arrogant. Her brother tells Arya that the handprints have been noticed a lot recently, and it is terrifying. Being a non-magic user, it is hard for them to save themselves. 5 days later, Maria interacts with Arya, asking her if she can be saved, and asks her about the investigation. Half a year ago, a flood happened in the town. At a barrier to suppress the water spirit's power was put into the river. It was taken down soon after, but the barrier may have had isolated the monster from the water and driven him mad. Maria's magical power is not high, but she possesses a mane. She tries to trap the monster, and surprisingly, the water spirit or the monster shows up as planned. Alina's father had golden hair, and her mother had red hair, so she was born with golden hair. Her brother, whom her mother tried to usurp, was a very kind boy. A bright soul he was, took her to an entirely different world. Alina would always look up to her brother and would question that is he supposed to be the next king. He can't even understand the meaning of the weight of the crown. He barely has the presence of the air of a mid-level aristocrat. Using her knowledge, they talked about what they could do for their country. Her father, who regretted fracturing the land due to his blind love, accepted Alina's offer, and thus, behind the backs of her mother, brother, and the nobles, her queenly education started. But even after being surrounded by people and servants, She was lonely and couldn't feel a connection with anyone until she met Arya. She was her light, but they weren't equal. They could never be friends because of their differences. But Arya ensured that they'll be walking different paths. But no matter how different those roads are, they'll never be alone again. And that's how Arya saved Alina's heart, and they made an oath to each other and part ways, saying their goodbyes. And that was the last time Alina ever cried. After this, for the sake of the kingdom, she puts on a mask and returns to being Princess Alina until they meet again. Arya remembered Alina had been too docile ever since that incident. She had to get stronger so that Alina could live in the light, and only had one goal in mind: she wanted to get stronger and protect Alina. Next, while training, she is approached by a cat and offers some biscuits to him. Getting food from Arya is not that easy, so the cat steals the biscuit and runs away. And Arya lays down pondering. The cat approaches her again with a grasshopper and finds it a friendly gesture. That water spirit was a possessed drowned man to avoid evaporation. Spirits can be troublesome opponents to fight, but if they are cut off from their elements, they gain the status effect madness and start attacking living beings to replenish their mana. To fight a spirit, you have to use magic, as the spirits are a spiritual life form. They take almost no damage from physical attacks. As Arya tried using different magic spells on the spirit, it kept on attacking her in any form possible with splash and water. As she tries to take hold of the situation, most of the villagers get gathered in the garden. She tries to fight far away from them and so passes the fence, and the water spirit appears again in front of her and starts attacking again as she tries to replenish her mane. The water spirit attacks her with a lot of water splash, and after a while, she uses her last weapon, her pendulum knife, and she spins it around his neck and uses the chant Vorpal Blade. The water spirits part in two ways as she eliminates the monster. A high-ranked bolter, Grave, shows up with a knife in his hand, questioning Arya's identity. Grave was not originally from the kingdom of Claydale. He was once the son of rather patriotic priests in the Fandora theocracy. But then he meets a noble and became a part of Claydale's dark side. The upper echelons of the Fandora theocracy were rotten to its core, and similar nobles exist in the Claydale as well. Yet proper nobles like hoes exist in this kingdom, and the reason for this could only be the power of that royal family. As Grave doubts Arya, she tries to escape, but he keeps constantly attacking her. To get away, she jumps off. From that day onwards, the attacks by the monsters in the mansion of Baron Sales stopped. The last victim of the so-called monster was said to be the young maid, and thus the case was closed. At the royal palace, Princess Alina gets the news that the maid, Arya, has gone missing and feels very disheartened, but on this day, all the potential queens are gathered at the royal palace to meet each other. They will be evaluated until the crown prince graduates from the academy to determine their ranks. The fellow future queens are the daughter of the feudal duchy, Patris Feudale, and the other daughter of the Leicester country, Clara Leicester. The scene then sets back to an abandoned cave, full of spider webs and dust and dirt. There appears a strange figure attacking the spiders, who are none other than Arya. She greets her master, Sir Jorah, with the spiders that she brought from the cave. It has been 4 months that she has been living with her master. Seasons passed by and Arya turned 9 years old. 4 months ago, she somehow survived that attacking day and collected her things she hid in the forest, and it took her 2 days to reach her destination, to the person she could hopefully lean on to. She shows the master the notebook she acquired from that evil woman and asks her to teach her magic. She shows the master the notebook which she acquired on condition for narrating the whole story of magic which she might have taught her, and hence she agrees to let Ari stay with her. She learns magic there while using it with combat techniques as well. She might not trust others, but the master is kind and Arya trusts her. Besides the princess, they would hunt together, bathe together, make magic weapons. After spending a week, they made an assassination tool, a pendulum. While working on such a day, Arya heard a knock on the main door. Both were alerted by it. Master instructed Arya to go hide, and she did. Dino, an unclaimed disciple, introduces himself, claiming that he has become the head of the Northern Frontier District branch of the Assassin's Guild and he has some favor to ask. He claims that he was looking for a few usable people that they could resort to. Dino can sense Arya's presence from far behind, and she ends up showing herself and agrees to become an assistant. Dino agrees to let Arya work and hands her a note asking her to show up at the place mentioned at by given time. Sanjura, the master, agrees to let Arya go, saying that she respects her decision as a human being, and tells her the truth that she is a dark elf, denoted by her skin color. They had a higher standing among the evil races that have been against human for a long time, and how both her parents died in the battlefield. She became an assassin so that she could feed her little sister and became a war demon. Decades passed by, and she had a day of realization that all she was about was war and had a meaningless existence. So she entrusted her sister to a proper family, faked her death, and deserted. It was all 50 years ago, and now she teaches magic to the disciple. The reason she stopped fighting was because of mana stones. Normally people tend to have 3 elements, but Sanjura possesses an affinity of 4 elements. People having 4 affinities don't live that long, but she wishes Arya good luck and provides her war requirements as a parting gift. As Arya heads out on her way, a spy is sent to observe both of them if they make a run, but Arya can observe his presence and fool him. She takes him down, and as she heads out, she has one thing to do before they leave the territory. 3 days pass by, and she visits Sele's barony to settle some business with the water spirit, which now takes the form of a drowning dog, fights him and eliminates him to obtain a mana stone from him and heads toward her destiny. 10 days later, she finally reaches Haydale County, where she greets a spy and asks for the direction of the graveyard. On reaching the location, she comes across a goth lowly woman, Keela, who is stronger than her. She is a little rude to her, but Dino greets Arya and shows her the Assassin Guild mansion. Fights within the guild are forbidden, but Keela ends up attacking Arya and she dodges it, and Leela ends up getting a scar on her face. As the tour ends, Dino tells her that she to complete a mission as a test, and if she is successful, they might consider her reliable enough for a real job. So her client is an ex-adventurer. The E-targets were considered to be adventurers, but it was found out that they were a part of the Thieves' Guild. The client had his lover killed by them and tried to bring them to justice, but due to the lack of evidence at the crime scene, the case was dismissed, and hence, the client came to them to get rid of them in the first place. At the dungeon, she meets up with another assassinator, Guy. They introduce each other, and Guy tells her about her new guildmates as well. The 5 figures that she needs to be wary of in the guild are Sharga the Berserker, Shadow User Radha, Keela the Delight, and Gode the Condemned. She realizes that she needs to get back on track by training both her body and mind. She needs to grow and needs to get back into the groove of training both body and mind. To protect the master, to protect Alina, she has to acquire the strength that she won't need to run away from fate. 10 days later, Arya reached Centria County. She visited an apothecary where she went to buy ingredients, and the next day she went on to buy some clothes and visit the Adventurer Guild to get a level 1 light mage rank. On passing the cure test, she is provided with a rank. As she is waiting, she is approached by a lot of fellow adventurers, but is rescued by the guild, as she had as her targets. Then the story goes back to the royal palace where Mihail, grandson of the chancellor, heard rumors that they found out about his cousin from another side of the family, Arya, and he was there to discuss a private thing about His Highness the Prince. The prince was interested in observing the lives of commoners and wanted to go out with his friends secretly. But as the princess went missing on her vacation, it was known that the kidnapping was done by Grave, a high-rank member who made changes to the process's guard detail and did not complete his investigation on the identity of the pink-haired maid, and the girl went missing. With all this information, Mihail asks for permission to tour the royal capital with a few guards not affiliated with the dark side, and so the adventurer party Rainbow Sword is summoned. Sanjura, the master, remembers not back in her time when she was in the Demon King's army. She wasn't able to take care of the young ones, but now that she lives in the countryside, she has disciples. As her first disciples, her enthusiasm took her down, and in her place, she got another disciple, Arya. Arya has already given up on treating the adult memories inside her as knowledge to have a normal childhood. She wants to become stronger, despite being stronger than normal kids, but also lacks the common sense of a typical girl, more than anything, by skipping out on her childhood. On the other hand, her thought patterns are of a seasoned mercenary, not of a child. But she has gained so much knowledge any master she had met so far has offered. While practicing her new pendulum blade, she attacks the wolves and learns it quickly. And one can look at her and can confidently say that one day this girl can get to a high level, both in her mana and body, and she can become a true war demon.